Alright, so our group was assigned to talk about caffeine as an addictive substance, and it's been very interesting to think about caffeine as a drug because of how ingrained it is in our culture and how often it is consumed by everybody. And so my task today is to talk about important information regarding caffeine and to educate us all on the addictive qualities that it has and the effects that it can have on our bodies and our minds. It is the world's most popular mood-altering and habit-forming drug that is out there. Like I said, it is so much part of our culture. It can be found almost everywhere in drinks such as coffee and tea, soda, energy drinks. I know that energy drinks are becoming a huge deal. I actually work in an alternative high school, and I see kids drinking energy drinks every single day in the mornings. That is their coffee, and then I see them in the afternoon, and they are wiped out. They are dead because of the effects that the caffeine and obviously the sugars as well has on them. But it can also be found in chocolates. Our book talked about different plants that it can be found in. There are 60 different plants that provide caffeine, and it's in medication like Excedrin. One interesting kind of tidbit is that tea is actually the most widely consumed beverage in the world besides water. So it goes water and then tea. In our book it talked about how the levels of caffeine in tea are actually higher than in a cup of coffee, but tea is more diluted than coffee is, and so the effects are not as great as a straight cup of coffee. Per capita, the consumption of caffeine in the US is about 300 milligrams per day, which equates to about 2 cups of coffee and 2 cans of soda like a Coke or a Mountain Dew. 60% of the 300 milligrams come from coffee, and about half of all Americans drink 3 cups of regular coffee per day. And I make a point to say regular coffee because that does not include coffee specialty drinks like espressos or lattes. And so I imagine that if we did include those drinks, that number would probably be higher. So let's talk about some of the effects of caffeine on the body. Caffeine actually helps constrict blood vessels in the brain, which is actually very valuable in treatment for headaches and migraines, because headaches and migraines are caused by dilation of the blood vessels, and so the caffeine helps constrict those in order to subside or reduce the pain. Some medical uses of caffeine include bronchodilator for asthma. It is a decongestant, a diuretic. It is an alertness aid. It helps suppress appetite, and it's an analgesic to control menstrual pain. Some non-medical uses that the book talked about, and they refer to the non-medical uses as being a mild stimulant in low doses, so around 100 to 200 milligrams. But these effects include increased alertness. It helps dissipate drowsiness or fatigue, and it can actually help facilitate thinking. One point to mention is that fairly important, and we'll actually add on to this later on as well, is that injecting 600 milligrams of caffeine is the equivalent of shooting 20 milligrams of amphetamine. So it definitely has some adverse effects when consumed in large dosages. It also, this is another physical effect, it inhibits adenosine, which is something that is naturally produced in our body that helps suppress mood. It'll induce sleep. It has anticonvulsive properties, causes low blood pressure, helps slow down your heart rate, and it is actually what causes the dilation of blood vessels. And so when caffeine becomes consumed on a regular basis, the adenosine receptor sites actually increase because they are not, the caffeine is not allowing them to perform their job. And so because the adenosine receptor sites are increasing, in order for the person to feel the effects of caffeine, they have to increase their intake of caffeine. And this is one of the main causes of tolerance in a person, the adenosine receptor sites increasing, so that they aren't inhibited by the caffeine intake. And so the person feels that they need to consume more caffeine so that they aren't suppressed or tired and things like that. And one last thing to add on to the effects is that caffeine can be lethal, which is kind of scary to think about because of probably how much we consume every day or every week without even really knowing it. But our text states that at 10 grams, caffeine becomes a lethal substance. And this equates to about 100 cups of coffee. So I imagine most people are not going to consume 100 cups of coffee in one day, but that's just to kind of give you an idea of the fact that, yes, it might be in a lot of our consumables every day, but it can become a very dangerous substance for us to consume.